Okay, in this lecture, we're going to look at something which is a little bit annoying, but that's okay. We're going to be able to get through it. We are looking at RSLogix 500 right beside RSLogix 5000. And as we all know by now, these are both made by Allen Bradley. So we would assume that when we're doing ladder logic from one to the other, things are going to be pretty similar. So I'm going to try and test that theory. I just went ahead and created an XIC, and I'm going to change that instruction type because what I really want is an SCP. I'm just too lazy to dig through all my menus for it. And there we go. I've got a scale with parameters, and I can bring an analog input signal into this, and I can translate that signal into something useful. So instead of it being 4 to 20 milliamps or a PID value from 0 to 16383, I can make it say something like 0 to 100 degrees or 0 to 2,000 gallons, or I can turn it into a useful range, and that's what the SCP does. And in 500 programming, you're going to use that all the time because it's hugely popular. It's very, very simple to work with. Whenever I come in here to 5000, I create another XIC, and I say, well, okay, I'm going to change this one to an SCP as well. So come in here, type out my SCP, hit enter, and look at that. It's an unknown instruction. So we have SCP in 500, but there is no scale with parameters in 5000. So that's something that we have to do differently in 5000. So what does that mean? What's the deal? How are we going to figure out what our analogs are? Well, there's another instruction, if you remember, CPT, compute, and what that allows us to do is put in a mathematical equation. So we can calculate an average, we can add a couple of things, we can bring in 3 or 4 different memory registers, we can do some serious math all in one block, and then we can store that to a destination. Well, fortunately, 5000 does still have the CPT. So we can do the same thing, and that's actually going to be our solution for the missing SCP. So instead of having one block which nicely scales our analogs for us, we're going to have to use a CPT, put in some math, and we're going to have to calculate that manually. And don't worry, we'll get into methods of how to do that and things like that as we program. So you can also go online and you can find scaling calculations left and right. So that's really not something we want to spend a whole lot of time with here, but just to let you know, when you're working with analogs, of course you're used to using SCP and it's convenient and it's wonderful, and for some reason the good people at Allen Bradley decided that it was just a little too useful to put into 5000, so we don't have that anymore, but we do have a viable workaround. So that's a very important distinction that you need to understand before you start trying to program with 5000.